Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Naguelito. The Naguelito is a lake monster that can be found at the ends of the earth, in the farthest corner of Patagonia, Argentina. It lives in Nahuel Huapi Lake and has a lot in common with a more famous mythical lake beast, the Loch Ness Monster. It's been described as a giant serpent, some kind of dinosaur-like creature that appears at the surface of the water with a big hump on its back like a camel. Some believe it could be a plesiosaur, a prehistoric dinosaur somehow left over from 65 million years ago. And just like Nessie in Scotland, it's only ever been captured in blurry photos. The first encounter with the Naguelito that we know about dates back to the days of the Native Americans. It was European explorers who heard from the locals that there was a dangerous monster lurking in the lake. And in 1897, Dr. Clemente Onelli, who was the director of the zoo in Buenos Aires, heard reports of the beast being spotted down in Patagonia. In 1910, a man named George Garrett saw the creature from his boat. It was about 450 yards away and appeared to be 23 feet long. It stuck nearly 7 feet out of the water. It looked like a giant floating snake. After George told others about what he saw, Dr. Onelli became interested and sent his own people to find evidence. There's been a hunt for this monster since 1922, yet no physical proof of its existence has ever been found. In the 1960s, the Argentine Navy was chased by an unidentified object under the water in this very lake, but they were never able to identify it. They simply saw it on their radar, a huge blip on a map chasing after their vessel. They were too worried to stop and let it catch up to them. Number 9. The Irish Sea Monster of World War I. On July 30th, 1915, the U-23 Schmidt German U-boat was lurking about 60 miles off the coast of Ireland. The Germans came across a small British cargo steamer called the Iberian. The British cargo vessel was carrying trucks and jeeps that were on their way to help the war effort against the Germans. Naturally, the Germans fired a torpedo, which blew a hole in the ship and killed 61 crew members. The Iberian sank. Then the gasoline that leaked out ignited and exploded, badly damaging the U-boat. But here's what else happened. That explosion, other than sending huge pieces of debris everywhere, also sent a giant sea monster flying through the air. According to the crew on the submarine, they saw a monster at least 60 feet long that looked like a crocodile being shot out of the water. The way they described it, it sounded a lot like an aquatic reptile. Some argue maybe it was a mosasaurus from 66 million years ago. 3 years later, in almost the same spot, on April 30th, 1918, the Mosasaurus attacked. A German U-boat had surfaced to recharge its batteries when the same sea monster described years before climbed onto their boat, ripped apart the forward-mounted gun, and tried to bite the ship in half. It caused so much damage that the Germans couldn't get back under the water and were soon captured by the British. But of course, nobody ever believed their story of being attacked by a sea monster. Number 8. A Red-Eyed Beast. A fisherman in Brazil recently shared some shocking footage of himself being chased by a mysterious animal under the water. We don't know exactly what this creature was, but it was moving at seriously high speeds as it tried to snatch the fisherman off his speedboat. He had his boat at full throttle. The camera pointed at the propeller and caught what appeared to be some kind of beast in hot pursuit. And to make things even more terrifying, you can see the monster's red glowing eyes in the footage. It looks like some kind of demon. The clip isn't very long, only 47 seconds, but the fisherman did at least give us the location. He was in the water just off the coast of Rio Grande do Sul, the southernmost state in Brazil. But unfortunately, we don't know what the creature was that moved so fast it could keep up with a speedboat. Some have said it was nothing but a seal with the red glowing eyes of a devil because of the camera. But the fisherman, presumably someone who has spent a significant amount of their life on the water, probably would have been able to tell the difference between a seal and a sea monster. Number 7. The USS Stein. The USS Stein was a Knox-class destroyer escort for the United States Navy back in 1978. It was on a special operation in the Pacific Ocean, somewhere near Ecuador, when it encountered something unbelievable. From out of nowhere, the ship had problems. The sonar system was disabled. They appeared to be under attack by some invisible enemy, and so they turned around and returned to California. When the USS Stein docked at the Long Beach Naval Shipyard, maintenance teams got to work repairing the sonar dome, and that was when they noticed some extreme damage. The rubber coating around the dome was covered in cuts and scrapes. Something had sliced this thing apart, and when they looked closer, they found the large curved hooks of some sort of monster stuck inside some of the gouges. Their best guess at the time was that the hooks came from the suction cups of a large squid. However, it made no sense. Judging by the size of the marks, the squid would have had to be upwards of 150 feet long. That's over 3 times the size of the giant squid, the longest squid in the world. We don't know what attacked the USS Stein, but if it really was a squid, it must have been the legendary Kraken itself, a huge squid capable of sinking ships that scientists have somehow never discovered. Number 6. Killer whales versus Yacht. Matt Johnson couldn't believe what was happening when he found himself surrounded by a vicious gang of killer whales. Johnston was sailing his boat near the coast of Portugal when the killer whales came out of nowhere. At first, they looked kind of peaceful, like big, playful dolphins, but then they became angry. They started trying to take bites out of his yacht and fought over the boat like dogs scrapping over a treat. There were 4 killer whales, and their vicious assault went on for nearly an hour. They did serious damage to the rudder and rammed the boat so hard it started spinning in circles. Matt got worried they were going to split the hull. He thought the killer whales would break his boat apart and send him crashing into the water. At one point, Johnston said he even saw one of the killer whales swimming off with a piece of his boat like some kind of trophy. Luckily, the killer whales left before they demolished his boat beyond repair, but they did over $10,000 worth of damage. Plus, it cost him almost $500 to be towed back to shore. Since the incident, Mr. Johnston said he will never sail in that area again for fear of the killer whales. Number 5. Attack of the Great White Shark. In Australia, one family got a little too close for comfort with an enormous great white shark. This wasn't a brief encounter either, but one that went on for over an hour. Because the Australian family was far out on the boat when they became trapped by the deadliest shark in the ocean, help was nowhere to be found. The great white, a slick beast and vicious predator over 14 feet long, circled their boat and refused to let them leave. It even took a few bites out of their motor. David Tuckfield, who was on the boat with his wife Tanya and their teenage son, called it a white-knuckle encounter. According to David, it all started with their son and a fishing rod. His son had just reeled in a big catch, and that was when the shark came to steal it. It breached the water right at the back of the boat, causing Tanya to scream in terror. The family even caught the shark on video as it launched itself out of the water with its mouth wide open, probably hoping one of the family members would just fall into it. David had never seen a shark so big in all his life, despite having lived in the area and been an avid fisherman for decades. It took over an hour for the shark to finally go away, but not before it really put some fear into that family. It was almost like the shark wanted them to know whose territory they were in. Number 4. The Mary Celeste. Mary Celeste set sail from New York on November 7, 1872. It was on its way to Italy, captained by Benjamin S. Briggs. He was joined by his wife and their 2-year-old daughter. There was also a crew of 8, making 11 people on board. About 1 month after she set sail, a passing British ship noticed the Mary Celeste at full sail and clearly adrift off the coast of the Azores. The British ship stopped to check on the Mary Celeste, only to discover that the crew was gone. The captain was gone, and there was no trace of his family. There was some water in the hold, 1 missing lifeboat, and enough food and water to last another 6 months. The ship itself was completely undamaged. So what happened between New York and Italy for the crew to abandon ship, despite the ship being seaworthy and having enough supplies to continue? That really is the big question, as this continues to be one of the biggest maritime mysteries in history. Some believe they were attacked by pirates, but that wouldn't explain why the cargo was still there. One of the more scientific theories is that fumes from the 1,700 barrels of alcohol sitting in the ship's hold caused the crew to flee or go completely insane. But perhaps the most interesting theory is that the ship was attacked by some kind of giant octopus or a sea monster, something that could pick off the crew one by one. Something that was so terrifying, the captain and his family got on the lifeboat and tried to row themselves to safety. What do you think happened to them? Number 3. Hippo Attack. Near Niamey, the capital of the African country of Niger, 13 people were killed in a vicious hippopotamus attack. Sharks and crocodiles may get all the attention with devastating animal attacks in the water, but nobody has a kill record like the hippopotamus. Maybe a shark will bite one person, and rarely is it fatal, but hippopotamuses will utterly obliterate a boat and kill all the passengers in one sitting. And that's what happened in 2014 when a cranky hippopotamus attacked a boat full of students. The students were just crossing the river to get to school. In West Africa, it's not that uncommon for there to be large bodies of water separating villages or schools. Villagers here use small riverboats like people in big cities use taxis. And on this day, the boat drifted too close to a hippopotamus who had youngsters with them and was in no mood to be messing around with humans. Those not killed by the hippo were left to drown in the water. 13 out of 18 passengers lost their lives. Number 2. The Norse Kraken. The Norse may have been expert sailors and navigators, but there were still things that they came across in their adventures that they couldn't explain. One of them was supposedly a truly immense underwater monster they called the Kraken. The Norse claimed that this beast frequently attacked ships. It enjoyed eating sailors, and it was not something you wanted to mess with. They described it kind of like a squid, only significantly bigger. Eyes as wide as dinner plates, huge tentacles, and over a mile long. There are even some Viking tales of the Kraken being so big, sailors would mistake it for an island. There are no specific legends of the Kraken attacking any one ship. Instead, it seemed every ship in the ocean was vulnerable to its tentacles. The legend of the Kraken started in the 13th century, when the Icelandic people really started talking about it seriously. In 1250, there was a scientific journal released that detailed the Kraken as a very real animal. The journal even described its feeding habits. Apparently, scientists had figured out that the Kraken would regurgitate food particles, spitting them out into the sea so that fish and other animals would get attracted to the partially digested food. Once a big enough swarm had accumulated, the Kraken would open its mouth and slurp all those unsuspecting fish down into its belly. Number 1. Crocodile Leap. Catherine Dyball and Cameron Bates were fishing on their small 15-foot boat when the unimaginable happened. They were in northwestern Australia, just trying to catch a few fish when they spotted a predator lurking near their boat. They immediately busted out their phones to start filming, and what followed was something the pair will never forget. First, the saltwater crocodile seemed to just be minding its business, but then, almost as if irritated they were filming it, the reptile burst into action. It swam rapidly at their boat like a torpedo. Then the crocodile used all its momentum and power to jump out of the water. The couple were speechless and stunned, as the crocodile looked like it would actually make it on board their boat. It even hit its head against the camera, causing the footage to go shaky for a moment. Luckily for Catherine and Cameron, the crocodile didn't have the best grip with its little reptile feet, and it wasn't able to scramble onto their boat. But it came very close enough to scare them half to death. Catherine told ABC News she's not all that keen on exploring the crocodile-infested waters in the region anymore. Thanks for watching! Which animal do you think would be the most terrifying to be attacked by? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon! Bye!